We initially thought a special oven was necessary for making a piglet. However, after urging us to use a standard oven for this piglet cushion, the outcome was stunning. What you see here is a complete pork rib. Despite the pig's relatively modest size, it weighs 6 kilograms. The first thing we are going to do is be a little careful with a sharp knife. We will separate the skin from the meat. They must be careful not to break the skin because we are going to need it as complete as possible. Here I make a recommendation. If you dare to prepare this piglet cushion, I advise you that your pig is not so tender so that the skin has some percentage of fat, and therefore the final result is more special when we have finished removing all the skin. This is how it should look on the tip of a thin knife. We are going to make some kind of little gaps. They shouldn't be that big, it's just so that the thread with which we cooked the breast fits perfectly. Those little gaps should be made along the entire edge of the skin and that they are not so separated from each other. As an extra tip, be very careful with the knife, you won't get cut. Now we proceed to reserve it in the refrigerator and move on to show you the meat. As you can notice here, we have 3 kg of pork pulp, and if there is meat, we remove it from the rib. It was not necessary to buy separately, since that rib gave us a good amount, but we need to marinate it to give it a good flavor. So in the blender, we are going to add 2 sprigs. Long onion chopped into large pieces. We put a white onion and a purple onion cut into large pieces. We continue with 20 garlic cloves, which are the approximate equivalent of 2 heads. We continue with a tablespoon of freshly ground black pepper, a tablespoon of paprika, half a tablespoon of dried oregano, 1 or 2 tablespoons of salt. We add a cup of water, and finally half a cup of Worcestershire sauce. We give maximum power to our blender, and all that remains is to wait for all this to be perfectly crushed. We are going to add 1 or 2 bay leaves to the meat and immediately add all the marinade. You will need to mix it very well so that this meat is completely covered. With this marinade, we cover it with vinyl paper, since it will be necessary to let it marinate for 1 to 2 days in the refrigerator because we want to make it as similar as possible to its original recipe. So in 2 days we return, time has passed, and we can see that this meat is well marinated and with a lot of flavor. Now we add it to a large cauldron over high heat. We mix a little, cover, and let the meat begin to release all its juices, as you can see on the screen. And if you noticed, we didn't add a single drop of water. This pig literally cooks in its own juices. We cover again and let it finish cooking, although it should not be completely cooked since it will finish cooking in the oven. We proceed to take out all this meat, draining it very well in a separate container, because we will need all that remaining liquid for cooking. Rice, and that rice consists of 2 kilograms and 250 grams that we have previously washed well. Since we saw that it was running very low on water, we added another cup. Now we put a splash of crushed oil on it, we mix very well, and if you notice, this rice was turning a little white. We add a little color, mix again for a few seconds so that this ingredient dissolves correctly, and proceed to let said rice dry. To dry the rice, we add 150 grams of fresh peas, although yellow peas are used in this preparation. We had a hard time finding them, so we used these green ones. When we have finished mixing very well, we cover this rice and let it finish cooking over low heat for about 15 minutes. 15 minutes passed, and this is how it should look. This rice is not fully cooked, it will finish cooking in the oven. On this side, we already have the leather well spread on the work table. The next step will be to be a good layer, mainly rice, as you can see on that layer of rice. We place the pork. For those who know the piglet, they know that it has plenty of meat. Now we put another layer of rice on the meat, and we arrange it very well, trying to make sure that the meat is well covered. Here we are putting the rest of the meat that was left, and we continue covering it with the rice. When we have covered all the meat, it is time to cover it very well with the leather. We fold the edges until they meet, and now, with the small gaps that we had made with the knife, we began to insert the kitchen thread, first on one side and then on the other, since when tightening the thread, this will cause the 2 edges of the leather to come together similarly, as if you were sewing clothes. When we finish tying all the edges, we turn it over, and here we have the popular piglet cushion. The next step is extremely important. With a pointed knife, we make small cuts on the skin without breaking much, because at the time of cooking, the pork skin blows and can explode. In this container, we have chotado oil mixed with a tablespoon of salt and a teaspoon of baking soda. This will make the skin taste very good, and the baking soda will help make it crisp. We place this cushion in an oven refractory, and speaking of oven, we must preheat it to 140 degrees for 30 minutes beforehand. The first issue you will carry will be lined with aluminum foil. This will help the skin not burn quickly. We bake for 330 H at 180 degrees C or 360 degrees F. It's past 3 a.m. and we can take out our piglet, but it's only to remove the aluminum foil, and here we can see how the process is going. Again, it goes to the oven, but this time it will be for 130 more hours, raising the temperature to 200 degrees or 400 degrees the F after a while. Look how this is going. We can notice that the skin is starting to take on that delicious level of crunchiness. What a beauty. 130H passed, and listen. That sound means we've reached the end of this video. Look what a show this piglet cushion is to the light. First, we are going to make a hole in the skin until the rice comes out. Since through that hole, we are going to put the spoon, and as we take out the rice, we are going to crush the pork with the same spoon so that the meat comes out well combined and ready. Don't forget to accompany them with a little piece of leather that, by the way, was extraordinarily crispy. Thanks for watching the video.